Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Matt here from PTCGO. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the top 16 deck lists from Chill Series number 36, which wrapped up this past Wednesday. One thing I do want to note, there will be no Grand Finals match posted to the channel this week. Both players who participated in that Grand Finals match late on Wednesday night were unable to record their game or live stream on Discord for us. So unfortunately, that match is going to be lost forever. However, we're going to be able to take a look at their deck lists and potentially make some separate videos on them later. Yeah, so no Grand Finals match this week, but still was a fantastic tournament. Chill Series 36 had about 450 players playing in it. It was the first tournament of our new Team Up Through Chilling Reign format. So probably the biggest, it's definitely the biggest tournament so far, the new format, and we had 500 Chilling Reign packs in the prize pool as well, so it was definitely a pretty awesome, pretty big, event. We got a chance to look at all the great deck lists. So first and foremost, before we actually get into that, what I want to do is take a look at the metagame. So, this is very, very early format. We were about 4 or 5 days into this format when this tournament happened, but this was the distribution of decks that people were playing at Chill Series. So we had a 13.8% Metashare, so I know 61 Eternatus sounds like a lot, but it's best to look at the Metashare here. 61 is still a lot of E-turns, so is 13.8%. But for reference, back in the day, we used to get like 20-25% ADP in tournaments. So, 13% E-turn at number 1 isn't actually that crazy. But regardless, 60 Eternatus being played. And this was because, of course, everyone knew that a lot of people would be playing Shadow Rider. It's the best new deck, and E-turn tends to have a pretty good matchup against Shadow Rider Calyrex. So E-turn was the most played deck. It's also a deck that a lot of people have compared to maybe some of the new cards, so that kind of makes sense. I expect things to kind of level out in the next few weeks. But most played deck was E-turn, and actually only had a 46% win rate, which, with a large sample size, typically most decks that are playable or good will fall somewhere really close to 50%. That's just kind of how the distribution typically goes. So 46% win rate is actually quite low, especially for the most played deck in the tournament. But if we go down to Shadow Rider with 50 people playing Shadow Rider, 11%, it had a 57% win rate. So you can kind of see here that Shadow Rider Calyrex did actually perform very, very well. With a large sample size. And then 42 Ice Rider right behind it, so still a whole lot of Ice Rider in the tournament, and had a 55% win rates. The two Calyrex decks, the new Ice Rider, Shadow Rider decks, were actually doing phenomenal. Very, very good decks. They performed very well in the tournament. We'll look into some specific lists in a minute. But actually, next up is ADP with 40. So ADP did kind of get a new revamp with some new cards like Echoing Horn, Peony, but only 44% win rate. 44.5% win rate. So ADP is not doing very good, or at least it didn't at this Chill Series with 40 people playing it and, about 300 games sample size. Below that, we have the Urshifus. Now, Limitless splits up the Urshifu archetype, so we can see that there are 24 Rapid Strike Urshifu, just straight Rapid Strike, and then we're 24 Urshifu Inteleon. So Rapid Strike Inteleon with Rapid Strike Urshifu, the new Inteleon. And, it's interesting because these are kind of the same deck, right? But so you got to kind of combine them. So realistically, this would go right before Shadow Rider at 48 if you combine those two archetypes, and that would make, Urshifu some of the most played decks. What's really interesting, though, is straight Rapid Strike Urshifu had a terrible win percentage at 38%. Absolutely terrible with a lot of games played. But Urshifu Inteleon had actually a pretty decent win percent with 52, which is crazy to think about. And then Luke Metal was kind of the dark horse of the tournament. No one really thought Luke Metal would be good in this new format, but it's a Chill Series, you never know. And out of 21 Luke Metals, with about 200 games played total, it had over a 60% win rate. Definitely the best win rate out of any of the decks that were played above 20. At a decent representation in the tournament. So yeah, interesting to note for sure. And then if we go down, we had Peak Rum at 15, 47%. This is the new Rapid Strike Malamar, which is this is a budget deck, guys, by the way. So a very cheap, very budget deck list. Actually had a pretty decent win rate at 48%, and that's actually kind of crazy if you think about it. So definitely super cool. And then we had Blaziken Urshifu. Blaziken Urshifu, terrible win percentage, although we did have one that did very well in the tournament. Definitely a bad win percentage there for that deck. 10 Mewtwo Rillaboom, again below 50, Dragapult below 50. Calyrex Alcremie, so that variant of Shadow Rider, which it was separate. It's listed separate at Limitless. Only 10 people played it, 9 people, but it had, again, an awful win rate at 35%. And this is probably because this is the more obtainable version of Calyrex. I think a lot of people who were playing Shadow Rider probably don't have things like Trevenant and Dust Noir and a lot of those good cards that typically go with Shadow Rider Calyrex. For that reason, these numbers might be a little bit skewed. But either way, Very interesting low win rate for that. Inteleon 40. Other decks pretty low, but and the last thing I want to note here is that out of the 5 Blissey players in the tournament, they went 25 and 20. There was actually one that did extremely well. We'll take a look at his list in a sec. 55% win rate for Blissey, so I expect a lot more people to be playing Blissey. Especially when that deck list gets a little bit more cracked open. But yeah, tons of other decks, a lot of different decks being played at low counts, a lot of 1-ofs, 2-ofs, 3-ofs. So definitely an interesting metagame for the tournament. Yeah, this is kind of a rundown, at least at the moment. Shadow Rider, Ice Rider doing really well. E-Turn, highly played, didn't do great. ADP didn't do well. Urshifu is just kind of all over the place, who knows? But Luke Metal seemed to be very, very good. Victini as well. Kind of fell off a little bit, but not too terrible either. Okay, anyway, that's about 5 minutes of just talking about the deck distribution. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at some lists, which I'm sure you guys are really excited for. So first of all, we're going to start with Kojikimura. We talk about him every week. He did manage to make another top 16, our number 1 seed this season for Chill Series so far. Excuse me. Yeah, 16th from Japan. He was playing Shadow Rider Calyrex. And before we actually get into his list, I want to let you know that we had so we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 out of 16 of these lists tonight are going to be Shadow Rider Calyrex lists. So, it is kind of the hot new deck right now. You guys can see what people were playing and what exactly was successful. So looking at Koichi's Calyrex list, Shadow Rider, we can see that this is just Trev Noir Shadow Rider. And this is kind of the highly accepted version. There are kind of 2 slight different variants to this sort of list. And that's going to be the one with Path to Peak and Zapdos, and that's sort of a widely accepted version. When this deck first came out, everyone was kind of hyped about Peak, Path to the Peak, and Trev Noir, and then you can tech in Zapdos in there. But for the most part, I think that Trev Noir isn't actually extremely needed in the list. I think that it is extremely a really, really good card. And potentially turn 2, you can get this thing set up very easily if you can get some Shadow Rider VMAXs on the board. So definitely a really cool version of the deck. We got the 4-4 lineup. It's interesting because even with 3 Path to the Peaks, we're running 2 Dedenes, 4 Shadow Riders, a Zapdos. And those are all cards that their abilities get turned off with Path to the Peak, but we're running 2 Marshadows to kind of, get rid of those Path to the Peaks if we want to. However, if we're going against an opponent who also runs Path to the Peak, it puts us in a pretty awkward position because we can't actually almost ever utilize the abilities of these guys. However, you can technically use their abilities in 2 different turns as long as you get access to Marshadow, because you can discard that stadium that turn. Yeah, it's just an interesting list for sure. 2 Gengar Mimikyus, 2 Trev Noirs. Sometimes I see a 1-2 lineup there, but yeah, definitely interesting. This deck is really built around, of course, Night Watch, Marnie, a Path to the Peak. It's a really deadly combo, and a lot of times it's even enough to get over Eternatus VMAX, which is probably why Etern didn't do very well in this tournament, or at least maybe part of the reason. Yeah, the new Fog Crystals in here. We have 1 Aurora, 1 Fighting Energy. Some people just run double Aurora. It's interesting to see the basic Fighting in here. I guess we can get that back with Ordinary Rod. 3 Boss, 3 Research, 4 Quick Ball, 3 Switch, 3 Air Balloon. So a lot of different switching options here in the list. I mean, I like it. I do. And this is sort of a more basic version of Shadow Rider Calyrex. But the thing is, a lot of people watching might not have 2 Gengar Mimikyu GXs or 2 Trevenant and Dusknoirs. These are very expensive cards at the moment. An extremely expensive deck, to be honest with you. With the Shadow Riders and the Trevenant and Dusknoirs, this deck can get really, really pricey really quick. But nonetheless, is probably one of the best decks in our game right now. So very cool. Koichi. That's our first Shadow Rider of the tournament. Next up, we're going to take a look at our boy Gabe Shumway from the U.S., 10-4. He was actually playing Victini VMAX, which is super interesting. Our only Victini, kind of deck. Our only Welder deck of the entire top 16. So let's take a look. Victini is still very good. It's everything that we know and love. And there's not too much different here than previous lists. We got the 2 Rapidash. We have the 4-4 Victini lineup, and we have Heatran, Cramorant, and Reshizard as our kind of secondary Welder attackers, right? That's kind of like the package, right? Is you're running the Victini lineups, but when you're not going to go with Victini, you're probably going to want either Cram, Heatran, or Reshizard. Those are going to be your best kind of fire-type attackers of yesteryear. And then we also have 2 Crobat, 2 Dedenne, 1 Eldegoss, draw support, all that good stuff. And then we do have a Marshadow, a lot of Path to the Peak, a lot of Swell up in here, so a lot of decks are going to be teching in Marshadow. Kind of like where last format everyone was teching in Mew. Now Marshadow is kind of that new tech with Path to the Peak running around. Yeah, 4 Welder, 4 Boss, typical, Victini stuff, 2 Marnies. I like the 4 Pokegear, so I like the Pokegear engine in Victini. Some people are running Scoop Up Net Jirachi with Stellar Wish, but I think that the Pokegear version with 4 Marnie, with 4 Welder, 4 Boss is very, very good. And I do think that with this deck, we also have things like Spreading Flame, so sometimes early game Welder isn't too necessary, but it obviously is pretty preferable. And then 4 Giant Hearth, 2 Air Balloon, 3 Switch. So yeah, Victini VMAX. It's a great deck. I mean, it really is. Probably one of the most still playable decks from Battle Styles. So now that Chilling Reign comes out, I know Urshifu is still really good, still highly played, but with all the Shadow Riders running around, it might be better, of course, to play Victini VMAX in my opinion. Yeah, very cool. And if I were to play Victini, this is pretty much the exact list that I would run. But either way, awesome to see Victini still kind of relevant and still being played in this format, and doing well. Gabe Shumway's a great player as well. Okay, so next up we have the 180p representative in top 16. That's Dayu Guantu. Guantu, I'm not sure, he's from China. 10 and 4. Okay, let's take a look at his ADP list. It's nice that we at least get to take a look at an ADP deck here post Chilling Reign, and this one is very interesting. A lot of text thrown in here, a lot of things going on. We still have 3 Zacian, 2 ADP, 2 Dedenne, 1 Crobat, Eldegoss, Mawile, all the typical ADP stuff, but we have a Galarian Zapdos V-Tech in here, which is, again, going to be super good against E-Turn. It just guarantees you a 1-hit KO for 4 prize cards against an E-Turn VMAX. A lot of times can swing the matchup. And we have an Aegislash-V in here as well because, of course, things like Decidueye and Altaria are still good, and they're still going to see some play, so I like the Aegislash tech in here. And then we're running Mew, and Mew's a deck that, or a card that really, in fact, can help a lot with Urshifu. And Blaze Aurora is running around as well, so Blaziken's Aurora. So it just makes sense, I think, running Mew still in this format, especially if your Urshifu matchup is a little bit iffy. But if your Urshifu matchup's good, then maybe Mew isn't entirely necessary, but I still think Mew's a very good tech to be running, especially into a tournament of this size. 3 Boss, 3 Research, 2 Marnie, 1 Peony, 1 Goose Mahala. Now, oftentimes right now we'll see that people are in fact running Goose Mahala in ADP because we're taking in some Aurora energies to utilize Zapdos V. This is totally fine. I mean, is it amazing? I don't know. But typically we're going to be drawing through a lot of cards in our deck, and with things like a Peony and a Goose Mahala, it's just a little bit more of dedicated search cards to search for specific cards that we might need. And I think that it's kind of justifiable. Is it better than running just 4 Boss's Orders? I don't know. The 4-3 Marnie lineup is interesting. I might have just run 4 Research and maybe just 1 Marnie in the deck. Yeah, definitely pretty interesting for sure. But I like this supporter lineup. Peony's also, of course, a new card. You discard your hand, search your deck for 2 trainer cards. Can really be the difference. You can grab Escape Rope or Great Catcher or Echoing Horn or Rusted Sword. Really whatever you need at one point. Or you could just grab Double Boss, and then you have kind of a game guaranteed for next turn. So that's just something as well to keep in mind. Interesting card. Not that great now that Marnie exists, but or now that not that great because Marnie still exists, but still a really cool card nonetheless. 4 Saucer, 4 Quick Ball, all normal stuff, good stuff. 3 E-Switch, 2 Spinner, all ADP things. 2 Rope, 1 Switch, 2 Air Balloon, plenty of switching options, 2 Cherish Balls thrown in there. I think a Great Catcher you still have to run for sure, especially alongside Echoing Horn, which is a new card from Chilling Reign as well. So definitely a really good combo. Echoing Horn, I think, is just a really good one-of in ADP because we can grab it with Peony. But it's one of those things where you put a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile into their hands, so even if they discard a thing like Dedenne because they don't want to play it in the matchup, you can still put it on their bench and boss it up for 3 prize cards. So absolutely ridiculous card in my opinion. Rusted Sword, yeah, I mean, we're running a higher count of Swell now in ADP, which I think is needed. With Path to the Peak running around, we really want to be able to utilize things like, Zacian, Dedenne, Crobat, Eldegoss, Aegislash, Mawile, or not Aegislash, Mawile. Literally almost all of our Pokemon are really dependent on their their abilities, and ADP is really all about that. So you want to defend that capabilities. If you're not running Swell in your ADP list and you're going against Path to the Peak, you're gonna have a bad time. So I like the 3 Swell count as well as the Goose Mahala, which is just technically a Swell because it's a way to search for it. So I like it. 3 Swells in general, 4 ways to find it. I think that it's almost needed in ADP right now. The energy count here, 11 total, 7 metal, 2 aurora, 2 water. Again, all good things. I like this ADP list. I really, really, really do. I think I'm probably going to make an ADP video soon. just talking about a new and improved ADP list or an updated ADP list, and I think that this would be a list that, you know, I'm probably going to take a look at, to be 100% honest with you. But yeah, I like it. I like it. I mean, ADP didn't do great. It might not be the play right now in this format, but this is a really interesting version of ADP. It's a very good list as well. Okay. We're going to try to go a little bit quicker once we start going over things that we've already taken a look at. And then next up, we have Chai91 from Cambodia? Taiwan, sorry, not Cambodia. He's from Taiwan. And he's playing E-Turn. So this was our only E-Turn representation. So let's again, get in here, take a look at E-Turn. And then once we get over to kind of the duplicate lists, we'll move a little bit quicker. But for right now, let's take a look at this E-Turn list. And this is, again, kind of a popular version of Eternatus right now, and a version that I quite like. So, you know, we're running just the normal 4-3-4 Crobat E-Turn lineup, nothing crazy in there. But we have a 2-2 Coughing, Galarian, Wheezing, and this is the one that turns off abilities from the active. And I like this one because abilities are super good right now. And it's one of those things where this can kind of counter Zapdos. So Zapdos can actually attack if it's got Wheezing in the active spot, but it also blocks just a lot of great things in general. Kind of works as a path to the peak, but, you know, nonetheless, only for your opponent. So I like Galarian Wheezing right now. There might be some more reasons why we're running it. Yeah, I mean, Galarian Wheezing is really cool. It is really cool. And then we have two of the new Moltres V, Galarian Moltres V. This is a great way to accelerate energies. Now, the E-Turn list that I just covered on my channel, we're running Weavile to move around those dark energies. Galarian Moltres is great because you can accelerate energies from your discard pile to the Moltres card. Kind of really does set up like a secondary attacker for 190 for 3 there. Again, a really good option. You don't necessarily need to run Weavile, but personally, I do like the Weavile version of the deck. Gives you a little bit more flexibility with harder setup. But this deck is also really good, but I think that Moltres is almost entirely needed right now if you're playing E-Turn, or it's very, very good in E-Turn, so I suggest you run it. 2 Goons, all good stuff. Liepard to discard those the tool cards, which is just kind of a tech in the deck, but it's searchable. It's a lot more easier to find than Tool Scrapper, even though, you know, tool cards aren't super great in the format. They're not really defining, but it's still a really good inclusion. And then we actually have a Marshadow in here, which is very interesting. But I guess if Path to the Peak is in play, you're kind of discarding your cards anyway. So if they Path to the Peak and KO an E-Turn or whatever, you can Marshadow, get rid of it, and kind of start resetting up your board. It's just interesting that we are running a Psychic-type card in E-Turn, but it's actually not that bad. This is why Marshadow is such a good tech card right now, why it's so important to be running this, especially in E-Turn, which really does get defeated heavily by Path to the Peak. One thing I do want to note is he's only running 2 Swell, so instead of running a Marshadow and Chaotic Swell, then maybe I would just run 3 Swells. But again, Marshadow is a lot easier to search in E-Turn with all the Pokemon search cards in your deck. So interesting nonetheless. 4 Professor's Research, 3 Boss's Orders, 3 Marnie, standard supporter lineup there. 4 Quick Ball, 3 Great Ball, 3 Calm, standard Pokemon search lineup there. 1 Air Balloon, which is interesting. Doesn't give E-Turn free retreat, but I guess it gives everything else free retreat. It doesn't even give Wheezing free retreat either, so I'm not sure about the Air Balloon. I guess it could be good to put on Moltres or a Pivot in some way, but I guess maybe just having Yveltal would be better. But interesting nonetheless. So 1 Air Balloon, 2 Switch, 2 Energy Switch. So this is kind of our replacement for running Weavile GX, and I quite like this. To be honest, I might take a list like this and modify it to where I'm not running the Weavile engine, but of course I am running Moltres and maybe some Energy Switches, and that kind of can be very similar. We accelerate the energies from the discard pile with Moltres, and then we move them to our Eternatus cards with Energy Switch. So that's actually a kind of good strategy, but I think if I were to play this, I would go a little bit heavier on E-Switch. We have a Stamp in here, 2 Big Charm. So Big Charm E-Turn is actually really, really, really cool. And I like I like Big Charm in this deck because, again, you can put it on the Moltres, but beef us up to, whatever it would be, 250, which is pretty cool. We can also put it on Wheezing to get us up to 160. That might, again, kind of get us out of range of Urshifu. I'm not even sure if we're weak to fighting with this card. Let me look. Is Wheezing weak to fighting? Yeah, never mind. So it doesn't work with Urshifu. But I don't know. Big Charm's kind of cool in E-Turn. I've always kind of been a fan. And then 6 Dark Energies, 3 Hiding. So again, kind of more free retreat options in there. I don't know if special energies are bad right now. I don't know if anyone's really running special energy removal. A fan of waves and super popular. So I quite like Hiding Energy. It doesn't work with Moltres, I don't believe, but again, maybe just a couple Hiding Energies in your E-Turn list is probably fine. But either way, interesting. Maybe wouldn't be my first option. if I'm playing Eternatus, to be honest with you. But I quite like just the basic idea between E-Switch and Moltres. Definitely kind of cool for sure. So this was our highest placing Eternatus of the tournament, which is just interesting for sure. All right, we're going to try to zip through most of these. Let's, especially these Shadow Riders, we're going to take a look at Ying, also from Taiwan, and let's see if his list is any different than the last Shadow Rider that we took a look at. So it is different, mainly just kind of all around, yeah, a bit different. We're running 2 Zapdos in here with 3 Aurora, so really heavily teching for E-Turn with those Zapdoses. Double Marshadow, but no Path to the Peak, no Stadiums at all in this list, which is interesting. But I guess Marshadow is in here to get rid of Path to the Peak if it ever came up. We have 2 Dedenne Crobat. We have a Rapidash in here, which is cool. And then instead of running like multiple Gengar Mimikyus and Trevenant and Dusknoir, we're actually just running a Mewtwo and Mewgx, which, you know, is maybe a little bit less consistent as far as things go, but it is kind of interesting. And again, it's just another way to play the list. Not too crazy or not too different. I think the only real difference here is running that Galarian Rapidash V. But overall, the list is different. We're not running Path to the Peak. We're kind of going a little bit more techie, you know, consistency in a sense, but we do have a stamp in here: Ordinary Rod, Tool Scrapper, Air Balloons, you know, Switch, Escape Rope, 13 energies total, 10 basics. So I like the list. Again, it's just another flavor of Shadow Rider. And again, probably the most accessible version of Shadow Rider is going to be the ones where we're running Gengar, Mimikyu, Trevenant, and Dusknoir. They're just such good cards. They're very different in kind of their strategy and how they play, but both of them really have the opportunity to turn the tides of any game. So you know, I really do like, you know, and they go really well with Shadow Rider as well. They go really well. I wish that Cresselia saw more play in these decks. I really do like Cresselia, but yeah, either way, it's super interesting. Definitely a very interesting list. Yeah, it's cool. All right. Anyway, Shadow Rider. Here's another one. And yeah, we're gonna talk about a lot of them. So, you know, we're not gonna go too in depth with the rest of these. Pokewave at 11th from the U.S. Also playing Shadow Rider. Let's see what his is rocking with. And awesome. So we see Cresselia here now. Now we're running a 4-3 lineup. I quite like 4-3. I don't know if getting 4 on your board is necessarily that useful. You know, accelerating 3 extra energies per turn seems fine, and I don't know if that 4th really makes a difference. So I like kind of now that we're including Cresselia, which does give us a really great option to go first or second. With 4 Fog Crystals, 4 Quick Balls, and plenty of switching options in the deck, it's almost entirely like acceptable that like we can kind of assume that we're going to be able to get Cresselia out if we go second, and if we don't, that's fine, because we're going to be able to potentially just get a bunch of Shadow Rider Vs on our board. I like Cresselia because it just boosts your ability to go first or second in whatever matchup and have a strong start. Here, we can see just 1 Trevenant, 1 Gengar Mimikyu. If you prize either of those, you're going to have to change plans in your matchup. Definitely interesting. Now we're only running 1 Path to the Peak and 1 Marshadow, but on top of that, we were actually running Chaotic Swell. So we saw Path to the Peak. We're going to see a lot of Chaotic Swell here up in a little bit in Shadow Rider. Now we're seeing a little bit of both, which is interesting. But everything else kind of the same. Maybe, you know, 45, 50 cards in Shadow Rider seem to be about the same. The Pokemon Search, the supporter lineup, Ordinary Rod, a reset stamp, all that seems to be pretty much accepted in Shadow Rider. This one now is kind of investing a little bit into Cresselia, which again I do like. And you know, if you're watching this, Cresselia is a phenomenal card, and it does go very well, especially being able to set up Trevenant on your first turn, or just set up a Shadow Rider for 3. So I really like Cresselia, and I think that it should see more play in Shadow Rider personally. But here's just another version. Here's just another version of Shadow Rider. We're going to see a lot of them, and I quite like this one. This might be my favorite one so far, if I'm being honest with you. So anyway, let's move on. Shout out to Pokewave. PC Curry. So Patton Curry, I believe his name is, from the U.S. He got 10th, also playing Shadow Rider. And let's see what this bad boy is rocking with. Okay, so this is a very interesting Shadow Rider. A little bit more just teched out, I guess. But it's actually really cool, and it has pretty good synergy. So we're running just 1 basic fighting energy. Let's hope we don't prize it against E-Turn, that is. But we're running Viridian Forest, which is actually a really, really great stadium card in Shadow Rider, because we can discard a card from our hand and just grab a basic energy from our deck. And of course, in order to use Underworld Door from Shadow Rider VMAX, we have to accelerate that energy from our hand. So Viridian Forest has great synergy in Shadow Rider. I also think Viridian Forest is just really good with Ice Rider as well. It's just a really good stadium right now in our format, and I expect a lot more people to be playing this card. We still have Marshadow in here. All the, you know, Pokemon Search is all the same. Now we're not running Ordinary Rod or Reset stamp in the list, but we're taking in some more Pokemon, and we can kind of see that with Double Mewtwo, but we have some GX attackers. In here we have Naganadel GX, which is pretty cool, Trevenant, Dusknoir, Gengar, Mimikyu, and we also have a Solgaleo and Lunala, which allows us to hit for 230 damage for 4 energies, which is definitely really, really cool. Still have that Zapdos tech in here. So it's interesting. It's just another way to do it. The format is so new, at least if you're watching this a little bit later on. When this tournament happened, the format was super new, and right now it is really new. So I know Shadow Rider is the deck that has a ton of potential. Everybody knows it's going to be really good, and they're just kind of figuring out, how to best play it. And build the list. So this is just another one. Patton, it's a creative one. This might be our one of the more creative Shadow Rider Calyrex decks. And one tournament isn't a great way to determine the best play to play it. It's one of those things where it takes a while to kind of get things all figured out. The fact that this list did get 10th out of 400 something players says a lot. It says that this is still a good list. This right here is a good list. Obviously, Patton's a great player, so it just kind of it's just interesting. It's interesting that this is something that we're taking a look at right now. Anyway, we're going to move on. I like that one a lot. Shout out to P. Curry. PC Uri. Yeah, P. Curry. All right, cool. Next up is AzulGG, one of the best players in the game. Debatably the best player. Just won Players Cup. He got 9th, so bubbled right out of 10th. Unfortunately, went 11-3, but his resistance was just off to make top 8. I know he probably was a little bit disappointed, played all night, but when you have a tournament of this size, that's just kind of how it goes. We didn't hit the 500 mark. If we do hit 500, what we typically do is increase it to 6 rounds in Phase 2. So that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. Unfortunately, Azul, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Bubbling 9th, though, not too bad. But again, he was our only peak ROM for top 16. We had one at 20. We'll take a look at this Blissey list after. But yeah, Azul was playing peak. It's just peak ROM. I don't know what else to say. Nothing much changed here except we're running. Oh, it's Path to the Peak. I get it. That's really funny. So instead of Chaotic Swell, I guess we're just running some peaks in here with a Marshadow. So it's one of those things where, again, we have Dedenne, we have Tapu Koko, Crobat, Eldegoss. These are cards we cannot use if Path to the Peak or in the active spot, but we have a Marshadow that we can search out and get that settled. So interesting. Peak ROM is still super powerful. A lot of synergy in Peak. It's electric type, so there's not a whole lot. Urshifu's kind of getting pushed to the side a little bit more because of course, Shadow Rider. So it makes sense that Peak ROM would come up and do pretty well in our format, or at least in this tournament, right? And so yeah, interesting nonetheless. Nothing else is too crazy here, but it's cool that we do have Marshadow. We're running 4 Bolton in here, by the way. And we actually have 2 Peak ROM, 2 Choo-Choo. So typically maybe we just run like 1 Choo-Choo and 2 Peak. So it's interesting that we're running 2 of each in this list. It's a very cool list. It is. And I think maybe Azul's onto something. If people are playing Peak ROM right now in our format, this might be the way to go. I don't know. I have no idea. But Path to the Peak, no pun intended, or pun completely intended by Azul. Who knows? So shout out to Azul. I like that, actually. I know everyone's kind of bored of Peak ROM, but I don't know. Something new. Azul's a great player. Knows how to play Peak, so no surprise that he did pretty well. Before we get into top 8, I'm actually going to go down to 21 and look at Red Harry's Blissey list because this guy did really well in the tournament. And this Blissey deck is actually hilarious. So we're running 4 Blissey Vs, our only Pokemon in the deck, but we're running 4 Hapu, which is really cool. So you look at the top 6 cards of your deck, put 3 of them in your hand, and then you discard the other one. So it's actually probably a way to get some of these energies in our discard pile. Of course, because Blissey accelerates from the discard pile after we attack. So that's kind of the whole idea behind Blissey, is to set it, kind of take 1 hit, set up, and then just do absolutely massive damage on that second attack with Blissey. 2-hit KOing most things in the format. And if you're going against a 3-prize deck and you're running only 2 prizers, the math and just kind of the strategy will probably work out for you a lot of times. But against things like ADP, you might struggle a little bit with this list. But it's definitely super cool. Also, high count of Path to the Peak, so we're not really utilizing Blissey's ability, and that's fine. No one really cares about the ability on Blissey, just the attack in that massive HP count. So yeah, the Hapu in here, research 4 hammers, so crushing hammers is actually really interesting as well, so we're kind of delaying our opponent while we just kind of set up and just keep hitting and hitting. It kind of like rollout in the actual video games. If you played the video games, it's like rollout. that kind of idea. And then 3 Cape of Toughnesses, just to put this guy up to 300 HP. And we also have Hyper Potion as well. I actually really like this list. I do. I'm not going to lie. It's got a lot of synergy. It goes together really well. Blissey is really, really cool. I might have to make a video on this. But yeah, shout out to this homie who got 21st out of 400 something with Blissey V, which is just super funny. I like how this is its own archetype. I really do. Lucky Energy as well, Draw Energy, so we're just drawing a bunch of cards. Draw Energy, you draw cards when you play this energy. Lucky Energy, when the Pokemon gets hit while this is attached, you draw cards. So kind of a little mini draw engine here. And Powerful Energy to do more damage. And then Weak Guard to get rid of our weakness. So I really like everything that we're seeing here in this list. It's super cool. That's a good one. That is a very good one. Shout out to Red Harry. Dude went 10-4 as well. Dude went 10-4. Okay, moving on to top 8, we're going to be taking a look at Luigi Lira from Brazil, and he was playing this Urshifu, Urshifu Inteleon list. This was actually our only Urshifu in top 16, and this is the one with the new, of course, Inteleon Rapid Strike. And this is a really great list, really cool list. Now, Urshifu, before, it used to kind of really utilize Gale Thrust, and we used to run some damage modifiers to hit the active spot for extra damage, things like Martial Arts Dojo. But now it seems that we're focused on that second attack, which is G-Max Rapid Flow, 120 to 2 Pokemon. And we're kind of really going all in with the bench damage and damage spread with Urshifu, which is a whole other can of worms that this deck can really kind of do really well with. So, of course, the new Rapid Strike Inteleon, we can just kind of ping something for 20 damage every turn, which is actually really strong. Fixes a lot of math. It's a stage 2, but of course we can run the Shady Dealings Drizzile, and also 1 Shady Dealings Inteleon to search our deck for trainer cards, so it's also kind of a draw support engine built in. We have the new Passimian Rapid Strike, which increases bench damage done to V and GX Pokemon by 30, and on top of Telescopic Sight, that's plus 60, so we can hit 2 bench Pokemon if they're V and GX Pokemon for 180, and that's actually 2 Crobats or Dedenne and a Crobat. That's a lot of times 4 prize cards, or even finishing off a tag team 5 prize cards for 1 attack. Which is just absolutely phenomenal. Everything else in here kind of normal Urshifu stuff. You know, we have Jirachi GX to get rid of our weakness, Mew to protect our board, Mimikyu to shut off Mewtwo. Karate Belt I like as well, so we can attack for less. You know, but only 1 Telescopic Sight, but it's still in there. Still pretty cool. Bird Keeper as well. Tower of Waters give us free retreat of our Rapid Strike Pokemon. Makes sense because we're running a higher count of Rapid Strike Pokemon, and then 8 energies in total. 2 spinners, too, to find those energies. Really important to go first and just kind of find and get those energies attachments, and if we're going second, perhaps get more of those in hand. So I do like that. I like this list, and I think that, you know, Urshifu these days, this is probably, you know, the best way to play Urshifu, which is to kind of, you know, increase our damage modification to do really big damage to bench Pokemon and take prize cards that way with Urshifu. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind for sure. Very cool. Very, very nice Urshifu list. I like it. I really do. Okay, next up we have Darcy 849. He's from Great Britain, I believe. Or is that... No, he's from Australia. My bad. I don't know my flags. He's from Australia. Playing Luke Metal. Probably don't have too much to say about this. Nope, it's just Tag Call Engine Luke Metal. One thing to note, though, is we're not running Guz Mahala in the list, which is interesting. But we're running just 3 Chaotic Swell. So I don't know. It's weird that we're running a high count of Chaotic Swell with Tag Call Engine, but not Guz Mahala. That's just me personally. But it seems like actually a really consistent Luke Metal list with high energy count. 4 Zacian, the Pokemon lineup's pretty normal. But we're running 4 Research, 4 Marnie with Tag Call Engine. I like it, actually. I really like this this list. 2 Boss's Orders, 3 Lily's Doll. It's cool. Yeah, Luke Metal. You know, I don't think Luke Metal really needed to change that much from Chilling Reigns in this new format, but it's cool to see that it is actually a little bit different than we last took a look at it. Luke Metal also made finals in this tournament, if you guys didn't know that. Luke Metal is very good still. Very powerful deck, and yeah, it's just good. It's just really, really good. So yeah, interesting. Here we go, Luke Metal. I'm not going to spend too much time at it. There it is. Absorb it. Take it in. Luke Metal. Shout out to Darcy. Really, really cool Luke Metal list. We actually had 3 of them in top 8, which is wild. Crazy to me. Next up, we got our boy Marcos Cifuentes from Chile. He's from, or he's playing Shadow Rider, just like all the other cool kids right now. And this is, you know, nothing too crazy. The only thing that really stands out to me immediately taking a look at this is we are running a Tool Scrapper in here, and we do have an Energy Recycler to shuffle 5 basic energies out of our discard pile, and I like that. I actually like this a lot. I think that E-Retrieval might actually just be better, but Energy Recycler does seem actually really good as well. Yeah, 1 Swell, 2 Marshadow, so we're not running Path to the Peak. And now, personally, I don't like Path to the Peak in Shadow Rider that much. I do like it in Ice Rider, but for Shadow Rider, Path to the Peak, it just doesn't seem that good to me. Chaotic Swell seems a bit more important. So we're running 2 Marshadows and 1 Chaotic Swell. The reason why we wouldn't just run 3 Chaotic Swell is because, of course, Marshadow is easily searchable, and it is searchable with Fog Crystal, so keep that in mind. Yeah, here it is. It's good. We're running the Trev Noir, Gengar Mimikyu combo, double Zapdos, 3 Aurora. I like it. Now, I don't know how any of these people really did that well against E-Turn. If it really helped a lot having a couple Zapdoses in there. Maybe it increases your chances, you know, at least somewhat slightly, which is probably more than enough realistically to make it worth it, because everything else seems to be, you know, you seem to be doing pretty good, I think, with Shadow Rider. So, yeah, interesting nonetheless. Big shout out to Marco. More Shadow Rider goodness. It's fun. You guys can just kind of see which ones you like and pick one that resonates with you and just kind of roll with that, perhaps. Next up, though, MrTech. MrTech from the US got 5th, and he was also playing Luke Metal. Let's take a look at his Luke Metal list, and we see that this is So it's he's running Tag Call, but he's only running 1, so it's not really Tag Call Engine. We're running, oh, so it's Hammers, okay. So we're running Luke Metal Hammers, making a comeback, which Hammers was played in Luke Metal for a while now. It's still kind of a good version. I mean, it might be the best version now? I don't know. The format's changed, but Crushing Hammers made top 8. Luke Metal Crushing Hammers made top 8. I don't know. It's kind of funny to say. But yeah, it looks like we kind of cut some Tag Calls. You know, we cut Lily's Doll. I think we cut like a Research or something, or a couple Goggles. I'm not exactly sure. We threw in Hammers in there, high Quick Ball count, Coding Energy, still 2 Chaotic Swell. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. It really is. With this format right now and how things are, I don't know if Coding Energy is actually that needed. It takes away a little bit of consistency with Intrepid Sword with Zacian, but of course it does help if you're going against Welder, but like we saw in this video, there wasn't a whole lot of Welder in our format right now. So that's just something to kind of, you know, food for thought. Realistically, I do like a higher kind of swell. I think maybe 3 swells could be pretty important right now. I think that Intrepid Sorting with Zacian is actually extremely important right now. It always is important, especially if you're not really drawing too hot with Luke Metal. So I like the higher kind of Chaotic Swell in my Luke Metal list personally. But we're running 4 Quick Balls, 4 Hammers, 4 Marnie, 3 Research, and we also have 2 Syncate. So there's a lot of consistency. There's a lot of draw support, a lot of drawing going on with this list. So, you know, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. The only thing I see being a problem with this list potentially is that we don't have a way to really search out Malalana consistently with only 1 Tag Call in the list. But other than that, everything else in here seems to be pretty good. I don't know how I feel about Crushing Hammers in Luke Metal at the moment. It's kind of an interesting meta call. I haven't tested it, really. I haven't actually tested Luke Metal at all in this new format, but it did really, really well at Chill Series. So for me, that kind of means that Luke Metal is really worth playing, and I expected to see a lot more play, you know, going into this next week of Chill Series, realistically. So Hammers, Luke Metal. Who would have thought? Not me. Okay, anyway, Christian Fontenot. Great player. Obviously a great player. Top 4 at Chill Series. This dude is from Denmark, and he was playing interesting list. So Blaziken's Aurora. Our only one for like miles and miles and miles, actually. But you know, kind of proves to me that this list, though hard to play, and realistically maybe a little bit clunky, is really powerful in nature, and at any point can really pop off. So I'd like it a lot. I did make a video on a similar list, although mine did include Urshifu. The Urshifu version doesn't seem to be as good as maybe just straight Aurora and Blaziken, but either way, the idea is kind of similar. It's a purely Rapid Strike deck where we're running Blaziken to accelerate energies to our Aurora. We're using Octillery to kind of search for Rapid Strike cards. We're using Aurora to hit with to the bench for massive damage, and Passimian Telescopic Sight to increase that damage done to the bench. I actually like the Echoing Horn in here as well because it is a Rapid Strike card. It is searchable with Octillery, and it does put a Pokemon on our opponent's bench that we can then snipe with Aurora V. So very good list. I think that everyone kind of thought that Blaziken's Aurora had a lot of potential. It potentially was extremely powerful of a deck, and I do agree. And I think that you know, we just kind of needed a list that seemed really good right now, and this one to me seems about as good as any Blaziken's Aurora list that I have ever seen, to be honest with you, or you know, have seen or taken a look at. I do like basic lightning energies with Tapu Koko Prism Star. I like Fion a lot. I do. Just the pure nature of Fion in this list makes a lot of sense. And Mew, of course, just kind of a meta call right now because you want to do well against Urshifu, and that makes sense. Everything else in here is great. I really do. I like the Karinas. I like that horn, telescopic sights, Tower of Waters, all great stuff. Really a phenomenal 60. And Christian did a really great job. Yeah, did a phenomenal job building this list. So this is cool. This might be the coolest one we take a look at all night, realistically. So really awesome to see that this list did well at Chill Series. It makes me happy. So anyway, yeah, shout out to Christian. Definitely super cool. All right, Bodhi is next. Bodhi? Body? I'm not sure. I think it's probably just Body. From the U.S., Shadow Rider. Let's take a look. Third in the tournament. So again, a lot of Shadow Riders here. This one... Okay, this one's actually interesting. It's a little bit interesting. It might seem just kind of normal. We're not running Gengar Mimikyu. We're going kind of all in with Trevenant and Dusknoir, which I do like. I think that is interesting for sure. We have 2 Marshadow in here with Path to the Peak. So 4 Path to the Peaks, 2 Marshadows, 1 Dedenne, 1 Crobat, but we do have 1 Cresselia in here, which I like. Now, I don't actually think you need to run a lot of Cresselia. I think that 1 or 2 is actually fine because we can just grab them with Fog Crystal or Quick Ball or Comp. So it's actually really easy to find Cresselia if we do want it on that first turn going second. But I don't think you really need that many. So I do like that. I like the 1 Cresselia thrown in there. Just kind of does increase your odds to go set when you're going second with Shadow Rider, so I think that makes a lot of sense. And everything else in here is pretty normal. Stamp, Ordinary Rod, 3 Switch, 2 Air Balloon. I like the 3 Boss, 4 Marnie, 3 Research. And I like the 2 Stamps. So I think if you're running high Trevnoir account, I think you got to run 4 Marnie, 2 Stamps, and then the 4 Path to the Peak. This combo is just crazy, right? So, you know, we'll get Path to the Peak down. We'll Marnie him to 4 or Stamp him to 4 or less, and then we Night Watch and discard 2 from their hand. It's just a really, really good combo. And it makes a lot of sense. And we're also running an Island Challenge Amulet. And if you don't know, this kind of decreases the amount of prize cards that your GX or EX Pokemon are worth. So we can attach this to our Trevenant and Dusknoir. And when we get hit, of course, we they take 1 less prize card. The thing is, though, it drops us down by 100 HP, but realistically, that's fine if we kind of get that Trevnoir lockdown. And we... Oops, sorry. Let me try to get back to it. If we get that, the Night Watch lock going and we kind of get him in a position where he can't actually attack us, that's where the Island Challenge Amulet's going to be really good. It's also good if we just take 1 hit, then we know we're going to go down next turn. We can attach the Island Challenge Amulet, and of course just hit with another Night Watch, potentially take a KO, and then if he comes to KO us, he's only taking 2 prize cards. I think it does actually help a bit, and I'm interested to see if Body's here watching. Did this win you any games? Was it that important? It seems like it could be really important in a lot of matchups, so definitely very interesting. But yeah, Trevnoir, I know it's super expensive on PTCGO. Shadow Riders as well. This is a very hard to build list right now if you don't already have the cards. But if you do have the cards and the means to make this list, I think that it is a really, really good one. Really phenomenal for sure. Next up, we have Jonathan Patricio from Chile, another absolutely insane player. Always does super, super well. And he was playing Luke Metal, and he had Marshadow in his Luke Metal list, which I think might have been actually kind of interesting. It might have been really important, and especially in that finals match, although he did take the L to Shadow Rider in a 2-0 loss. But nonetheless, we're not going to be able to see that finals match, so we'll never know. No gameplay for this week of Chill Series, unfortunately. Hopefully next week we'll have some gameplay to show you guys of finals. I'm hoping, but there's only so much that I can do here. So we're running 3 Marnie, 1 Syncate. And yeah, here it is. Luke Metal. Again, it's a little bit funky, a little bit different. 3 Marnie, 1 Syncate instead of the 2-2. Marshadow in here with 2 Swell instead of 3 Swell. Only 1 Tag Call, 4 Quick Ball. This kind of seems to be the wave with Luke Metal. 1 Tag Call and 4 Quick Balls. A little bit sketchy because, but he's running 1 extra Malolana, so they're probably a little bit easier to find and to draw into rather than just kind of blindly drawing into just 2 of them with 1 Tag Call. I quite like it. I really do. And yeah, Luke Metal. 3 of them were in top 8. So, say what you want about Luke Metal. It's actually a deck that most people probably have right now. I think it was a ladder reward recently. Luke Metal is extremely good, and we had 3 of them in top 8. So just keep that in mind. We also had 1 make it to finals. So Luke Metal right now, probably pretty playable. In fact, it might be the second best deck behind, of course, Shadow Rider. And for example, we have Apple Rock Cheese is this guy's name. I don't know. I have no idea. Apple Rock Cheese. and he is from Japan. Ended up winning this tournament 15-2. He has a real name as well. I just forget it. Yeah, playing Shadow Rider VMAX. And this was the winning Shadow Rider deck. Very similar to that last one that we saw, but a couple things that I want to point out, and the big one here that might stand out to you guys is that this man was not running Trevenant and Dust Noir. Now, everybody kind of assumed that the best way to play Shadow Rider would be to play with Trev Noir, but it seems that the deck that ended up winning our tournament just kind of forebode or forewent to that entire strategy, and just kind of focused on the Shadow Rider 4/4 as our main attacker. But I'm sure this Gengar Mimikyu saw a lot of action as well, with 15 energies total in deck, and also no path to the peak. So listen, all those lists that we took a look at throughout this 45-minute video were really good. Path to the Peak, Trev Noir, Shadow Rider. But you know what deck actually won the tournament? It was Chaotic Swell, Shadow Rider with no Trev Noir. So food for thought, just might be something to keep in mind. Might be a fluke. Who actually knows? Not me. But I do find it to be really interesting. And all these lists played Zapdos. Now, in a month or two from now, maybe no one will be playing Zapdos and Shadow Rider. I don't know. I really have no idea. E-Turn didn't seem to do very well, so maybe that, the Galarian Zapdos V was working for him. I don't really know. But, yeah, another big thing here that I want to take a look at or point out is the energy retrieval. Now, this takes 2 energy from our discard pile, basic energies, and puts them into our hand. And, of course, Shadow Rider needs them to be in our hand. So it's pretty much just a +2 to hand, whereas, Fog Crystal is also just a +1. So realistically, we have a lot of ways to accelerate energies into our hand from our deck or our discard pile. So I think that energy retrieval should see more play in Shadow Rider VMAX. Just my opinion. But yeah, here it is, guys. This is the list that won the first major tournament of the Chilling Reign format. Of course, we're going to have big Chilling Reign tournaments every week. We're going to kind of keep up with the meta, figure things out as we go, and see what decks are progressively becoming the best decks in this new format. So I'm really excited to see what the next few weeks, have ahead of us. I apologize this video was so long, but, it's a new format, a lot of new decks, a lot of things to talk about. I know that I probably talked for a really long time. I do apologize about that, but some people like to hear me talk. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. We're going to get out of here, though. We're going to leave. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, I apologize. No Grand Finals match this week. I know it stinks. That's one of our most viewed videos every week. Everybody is always hyped to watch it. But this week, unfortunately, we do not have that. However, we'll have an extra deck profile video to take a look at this week. And we'll also do a meta-analysis video in the next few days after a couple more tournaments work out, where we can kind of look at the format as a whole, which definitely might be pretty interesting. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Matty from Chill TCG. You guys have a great day. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and don't forget to play in Chill Series tournaments every Wednesday at 6:15 p.m. Sponsored by, of course, PTCGO Zone. I should have their logo on screen right now, but I forgot to do it. I might have to put it in post. We'll see. I probably won't because I'm lazy. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. Thanks for watching. Have you guys a great day. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.